Absolutely, I'll get started on that. My name is Jorge Forero. The reason that I got into theater is because of my daughter. I have a 14-year-old. Her name is Shayla Ferrero. She's been doing theater since she was 5 years old. And I work, I run a company, and I travel a lot for work. Prior to COVID, I was on the road quite a bit. We live all the way down in Santan Valley, and the theaters that she normally does work is in Gilbert, so they're about an hour away from home. So my wife is the one that was always driving her back and forth, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of the background so you understand how I got into it. And then
Right.
when she broke her ankle and the pandemic was going on, I'm the one who ended up taking her to all her classes and her rehearsals. And because we live an hour away, if I took her over to do an hour of, drive an hour and she has rehearsals for 3 hours, there's no point in me coming home and then going to pick her up. So when I was staying there waiting for her is when I started volunteering more time into the set building. I always volunteered a few hours, in youth theater. They always like the parents to volunteer a couple of hours, as a minimum. So I always helped a little bit, but because of my travel schedule, I didn't get too involved into the design of the build. I just came in and asked the other dads, hey, what do you guys need help with? And I will build it. So, but that's kind of how I got into it, right? So I started spending a lot more time into the theater and all the productions that she was doing. And as she's getting older, I got more vested into doing better sets for her, right? And then I kind of became the lead at Limelight with another dad, Joe, who's also nominated with me as well, because his kids, are a couple years older than my kid, but they're always in the productions together. So we ended up spending a lot of time building the sets. And as we went from one production to another, we learned from it, right? It's like, hey, this is how you put two pieces together. And for me, the biggest thing has always been making it safe for the kids, right? I would have a sit down with the directors and they say, oh yeah, we just need a platform here. And my first question is like, are kids gonna dance on it? I'm like, oh no, we just need it. They're gonna stand here. And then as we build it, then all of a sudden, oh, they changed the choreography. Now they got 8 people dancing on this platform, right? So with little things like that, now when I build stuff, it's like I'm gonna build it for 20 people to stand on it, regardless whether they're gonna use it or that way. Because for me, it's always making sure that the kids are safe. So that's how little things started like that. And then for the play that goes wrong, we saw this in New York City years ago, and it's always a play that my daughter wanted to be in. And I was telling, when the director, came up, when the theater said, "Hey, we're gonna be doing this," I was always interested. Hey, if my daughter's gonna do it, I want to build a set. I have ideas for it because I saw the play. I kind of figure out what needed to be done. So now this set, if you've seen the show, it falls down around the kids. Like all the walls end up falling down at some point, and
Hmm.
the kids are in the windows as they're falling down. So I wanted to make sure that I built it in such a way that it was safe for them. And the thing is that they needed it for rehearsals. So me and the other dad, Joe, we ended up putting a lot of hours to get it ready just so they can have it when rehearsals began because the set itself ends up becoming another character. It's a main character of the production, right? It's so to me that was very important. And obviously I kind of just looked at the space that they needed and my questions to the director was, okay, which wall do you want to fall? And like, okay, this wall. Then we go ahead and make that wall fall. And then the other ones that at the end of the show, when everything falls down, I just made it sure that when they all fell down, they came down clean and they didn't overlap with each other. And that all the kids were in the specific blocks that they needed to be in. So they didn't fall. So part of the set design too is that I mark, I take boxes where the kids needed to stand when certain things were going to happen, right? And I made sure that those kids were within those boxes for those special events because if they were not, somebody can get hurt.
Okay, great. And for someone who's trying to get into prop design or set design, what are like some good basic tools or tips that they can utilize?
So the biggest thing that I would tell somebody, and I actually kind of said something like this similar to some of the kids, not in this production, but in other productions that I've helped with, kids who are in high school and they're in the theater department. The same thing that I'm gonna tell you is what I told them, right? When you're building the sets, right, and prop design, just try to make it simple, you know, in such a way that it fits the scene, but you don't have to worry that it's too overcomplicated, right? For example, oh, and the other thing is that try to use things that try to build things that you can reuse, right? From one scene to the other, right? So what, for example, um, the Freaky Friday, right? Because there was a lot of scenes in that production, right? A lot of different scenery, right? There's a high school, there's a kitchen, there's a bedroom. So what I ended up doing for that is, you know, building columns that had four sides, right? So you can rotate the columns, and each column will give you a different scenery, right? Like whether it's a bedroom, whether it's a brick wall, whether there's a high school locker, so you can kind of build them. So that's what I tell people is like, if you want to get into it, always think to building things simply, make them light, you know, that way they're movable, because especially if, you know, if you're having kids moving things around, you want to make sure that they're light for them to move the set pieces, and make them that they're reusable so that you can use them from one scene to the other, or maybe from one production to the other, right? I ended up building a bar for the Drowsy Chaperone, and we've used that bar now in like 6 different productions after that one, right? Because you know, just painted a different color and it fits into the realm, right? Like they just finished doing, and my daughter wasn't in it. They just finished doing a Les Mis, and in Les Mis they had that same bar that we built for Drowsy Chaperone like 6 productions ago, right? So things like that, make them, you know, make them reusable. That way, you know, you get more money, you get more bang for your buck type of scenario. That's what kind of the advice that I tell people. And then most important, especially in youth theater, you know, make things safe for kids, right? So when you screw a couple of pieces of wood together, make sure that there's no screws coming out of the back end, right? Because somebody grabs it, you know, little things like that. Unfortunately, I've learned through the hard way, right? Because when I started doing this, you know, a lot of parents that come in to volunteer hours, you know, they're like I was, right? Weekend warriors. They know how to use a power drill, but they don't think about it. And I go back and check all the pieces that were put together. Okay, are there any screws in the background? And if they are, I'll send somebody with a grinder, make sure they all grind them down to make sure it's safe for the kids. So those are kind of like the 3 pieces, right? Keep it simple, make it reusable, and make it safe.
All right, definitely very good advice. I believe that is all the time we have today. I definitely thank you for your time and wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure meeting you.
All right, take care.
Okay, great.